Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. If you were already successful, truly successful, how would you walk into a room? How would you treat people? How would you plan your day? My friends, the key to becoming the person you want to be lies in living like that person now. Not tomorrow, not when the bank account is full or the dream job arrives. Now, success is not something you stumble upon like a set of keys lost in the couch cushions. Success is built. It's constructed in thought, refined in action, and proven over time. So many people say, when I make it, I'll do this, or when I get rich, I'll act differently. But let me tell you something. If you wait until you're successful to think like a success, you're never going to make it. You must think, speak, act, and live as if you've already arrived, because success doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've been becoming. Now, this isn't about pretending. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. You're aligning your mindset, habits, and standards with the life you're building. Ask yourself, certainly, here's a 500-word expansion of the keynote identity drives behavior. Written in a tone consistent with the rest of the speech. Identity drives behavior. That's the foundation of everything. Long before results show up, long before the applause or the income or the title, identity is already doing its work. Quietly, powerfully, behind the scenes. What you do consistently flows from how you see yourself. If you see yourself as capable, worthy, and responsible, your behavior begins to match that belief. On the other hand, if deep down you see yourself as someone who's always falling short, then you'll find ways, consciously or not, to sabotage your own progress. The mind always works to stay in alignment with the self-image we've accepted, whether that image serves us or not. People often try to change their behavior without changing their identity. They say, I want to get fit, but inside they still see themselves as someone who struggles with discipline. They say, I want to build wealth, but carry the identity of someone who's always broke or always behind. So even if they get a little momentum, they eventually retreat back to what's familiar. That's because the behavior is in conflict with the identity, and over time, identity always wins. But here's the good news. Identity can be shaped. It can be chosen. You don't have to wait for proof to start believing something new about yourself. You don't need a certificate, a title, or a bank balance to start showing up like the person you want to become. You can make that shift today internally, and let the results catch up to your mindset. When you start to say, I am a disciplined person, even if you're just starting, your mind begins to seek out ways to behave in accordance with that statement. When you decide, I'm a leader, you stop waiting for permission and start taking ownership of your actions. Now, this isn't about lying to yourself. It's not about puffing yourself up with empty declarations. It's about making a deliberate choice to align your self-image with your goals. If you want to build a different life, you need to build a different internal story. That story becomes your compass. Your habits, your words, your reactions. They begin to shift, not because you're forcing change, but because you're becoming someone new. You won't always feel confident at first. That's normal, but confidence comes from consistency. The more you act in line with your chosen identity, the more it becomes natural. Over time, that identity gets internalized. You no longer have to think about it. It's just who you are. So if you're aiming for success, don't start by changing your schedule. Start by changing your self-concept. Begin with belief. See yourself not just as someone who wants to succeed, but as someone who already carries the identity of success within. Because once you do that, your behavior will start to follow, and with enough consistency, the results won't be far behind. Identity isn't just part of the process, it is the process. Habits shape destiny. There's no shortcut around that truth. The small choices you make every day are quietly carving out the life you'll live tomorrow, not the once in a while decisions, not the big moments of motivation, but the simple, repeated actions you take when no one's watching. That's where your future is being built. Most people underestimate the power of habits because the results don't show up right away. You eat one healthy meal, nothing changes. You skip a workout, no harm done. You read one page of a book, and it feels like a drop in the ocean. But stack those choices over weeks, months, and years, and the picture changes dramatically. Habits compound for better or worse. They can either push you toward your potential or pull you away from it. Success doesn't arrive all at once. It shows up slowly as the natural outcome of repeated behaviors aligned with your goals. If your habits are scattered, reactive, and driven by emotion or convenience, your life will reflect that lack of structure. But if your habits are intentional, focused, and designed to build the identity you want to embody, then every day becomes a brick laid toward a solid foundation. The key isn't doing more, it's doing what matters most, consistently. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to start showing up the way the successful version of you would, one habit at a time. Your habits are a mirror. They reflect what you truly value, regardless of what you say you want. You may say you want to be healthy, but if your habits reflect neglect or inconsistency, the results will match that truth. You may want to be wealthy, but if your spending and saving habits are out of control, you'll find yourself constantly circling the same financial problems. That's the raw honesty of habits. They don't lie. They just repeat. And whatever you repeat, you reinforce. This is why designing your habits with intention is one of the most powerful things you can do. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. A goal gives you direction, but your habits create momentum. And once momentum is on your side, progress becomes inevitable. The effort begins to feel natural because it's no longer something you're forcing. It's simply who you are. Every time you complete a habit, you cast a vote for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. A vote for being disciplined, a vote for being focused, a vote for growth. Those votes add up. They shape your self-image, and that identity starts to guide you automatically. The beauty of habits is that once they're established, they require less mental effort. You no longer have to think about doing the right thing. It becomes second nature. So the question isn't whether you have habits. Everyone does. The question is whether your habits are leading you toward your vision or keeping you stuck where you are. Because in the end, your destiny isn't determined by a single decision. It's written in the small, repeated choices you make every single day. Raise your standards early. Don't wait for success to show up before you decide to expect more from yourself. The world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're willing to tolerate. And if your standards are low, if you're okay with average effort, mediocre results, and loose discipline, then that's exactly what life will give back to you. But when you decide to expect more, when you draw a clear line in the sand and say, "This is what I stand for, and nothing less," everything begins to shift. You start to see your time differently. You start to protect your energy. You stop making excuses because excuses don't fit into a high-standard life. People think standards are something you upgrade after success comes, but that's backward. High standards are what bring success closer in the first place. They are the internal boundaries that guide your behavior when no one's watching. They keep you on track when motivation fades. When your standards are high, you don't cut corners just because you're tired. You don't abandon discipline because no one will notice. You don't settle for good enough when you know excellence is still on the table. That mindset becomes the filter through which every decision is made. You don't need money, status, or recognition to raise your standards. You can do that today, right where you are. You decide how you show up. You decide how prepared you are, how consistent you are, how much effort you give to what matters. And it's not about being perfect. It's about refusing to settle. High standards aren't about being hard on yourself. They're about respecting yourself. When you respect your future, your time, and your potential, you naturally stop tolerating the things that pull you away from them. The truth is, you already know what needs to change. You know what behaviors aren't serving you, what distractions are costing you, and what compromises have become too familiar. But as long as you allow them to stay, you're signaling that they're acceptable. The moment you raise your standards, the moment you say, "This isn't who I am anymore," you shift your entire trajectory. It might not be dramatic at first. Sometimes it's just choosing not to scroll your phone when you should be working, or speaking up when silence would be easier. But those decisions stack. They create momentum. And when you raise your standards early, before the world validates you, before you get the title, the income, the recognition, you show that you're not waiting for permission to live like you matter. You're deciding, right now, to hold yourself to a higher level, because the person you want to become deserves that. Standards shape identity. Identity shapes action, and action, repeated over time, becomes your life. Raise your standards early, and everything else will rise to meet them. Practice confidence before the world confirms it. If you wait for applause, recognition, or approval to start believing in yourself, you'll be stuck in hesitation your whole life. Confidence isn't something that arrives at your doorstep one day because you earned it. It's something you build from the inside, piece by piece, before there's any visible reason to believe. You have to be willing to act with belief long before you feel ready. That's the secret nobody tells you. The people who look the most confident aren't always the most experienced. They're just the ones who decided to trust themselves before the world gave them permission. Most people hold back. They wait until they're qualified, until they feel certain, until someone else tells them they're good enough. But what they don't realize is that confidence grows from action. The more you show up, the more you try, the more you take risks, the stronger that inner muscle becomes, and the earlier you begin practicing it, before the achievements, before the titles, before the validation, the faster you gain ground. If you let the outside world determine how much you believe in yourself, you'll always be chasing. You'll be stuck performing for approval instead of living from a place of ownership. You don't need proof to start carrying yourself with confidence. You need a decision to back yourself, to show up prepared, to speak clearly, to move with purpose, even when your hands are shaking. That doesn't mean pretending to know everything. It means trusting that you can learn, adapt, and rise to the challenge. Confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's the ability to act even while doubt is whispering in your ear. People are drawn to those who carry certainty, not arrogance. Certainty, there's a difference. Arrogance is rooted in fear, in the need to be seen as superior, but real confidence is grounded in quiet strength. It says, "I know who I am, and I know I'm capable, even if I haven't proven it to you yet." That kind of confidence isn't about being loud. It's about being steady. When you walk into a room with that mindset, people feel it, even if they can't explain it, and eventually they'll start to believe in you, because you believed in yourself first. So start showing up today like the future version of you already exists. Speak like someone who has something valuable to say. Work like someone whose effort is worthy of reward. Carry yourself like a person who already belongs in the room. It might feel uncomfortable at first. You might feel like an imposter, but that discomfort is part of the process. You grow into the confidence you're practicing. Every time you push past self-doubt and take action, you're proving to yourself that you can. And those small wins, those quiet moments of courage, they begin to stack. One day, the world will catch up to what you already knew. But until then, don't wait. Practice confidence now, before anyone else sees it, because that's how the world eventually will. Live generously and gratefully now, not later, not someday, not when everything is perfect or when you finally have enough. Start where you are with what you have, because generosity and gratitude are not outcomes of success. They are the foundation of it. Too many people make the mistake of believing they'll be more generous once they've achieved more or be more grateful, once life looks exactly the way they want it to. But that mindset keeps you chasing something that keeps moving. It delays joy, it delays meaning, and it disconnects you from the very values that would have elevated your life in the first place. You don't need wealth to be generous. You don't need everything to be perfect to be grateful. Generosity is a mindset, not a number. Gratitude is a discipline, not a reaction. When you choose to live with an open hand and an open heart, even when you're still building, you prove that your values are not conditional. You demonstrate strength, not weakness, and life tends to reward that. The person who gives encouragement when they're still waiting on their own breakthrough is the kind of person who earns respect. The one who notices beauty and blessings in the middle of chaos is the one who's truly rich, because they're tapped into something deeper than circumstances. Living generously doesn't always mean giving money. Sometimes it's giving your attention, your patience, your kindness, your presence. In a world full of distraction and self-interest, these things are rare and powerful. And when you give from that place, you elevate not just others, but yourself. You remind yourself that you are already enough, that you already have value, that you already have something worth sharing. And gratitude, real, practiced gratitude, can change how you see everything. It's not about ignoring your goals or pretending life is perfect. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of striving, you are surrounded by things worth celebrating. The breath in your lungs, the people in your life, the lessons you've learned, the opportunities that still exist. Gratitude doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow from a place of strength instead of lack. When you're grateful, you're not desperate. You don't chase validation. You move with peace, clarity, and intention. Living this way now, instead of waiting, changes the energy you bring to your goals. It makes you magnetic. People trust those who give without keeping score. People follow those who stay humble and grounded, even while reaching for more. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself. You stop measuring your worth by external milestones and start living by internal standards. That shift changes everything. So even if you're still climbing, still building, still figuring it all out, choose to be generous now. Choose to be grateful now, not because life is perfect, but because you are wise enough to see the power in what you already have. That decision doesn't just change how you feel, it changes who you become. Act with the end in mind. Every day, you're writing the story of your life, whether you realize it or not. The question is, are you doing it with intention or by default? Too many people drift through their days without thinking about where their choices are leading them. They react to life instead of designing it. They do what's easy instead of what's meaningful. But when you begin to live with the end in mind, everything changes. You stop asking, what feels good right now? And start asking, will this move me closer to the life I want to live? Living with the end in mind means getting clear about what matters most. It means imagining the person you want to be remembered as, the values you want to embody, the impact you want to have, the legacy you want to leave, and letting that image guide your decisions today. It's not just about long-term goals or big dreams. It's about aligning your actions in the small moments, the way you speak to others, the way you treat your body, the way you handle pressure, the way you use your time. All of it either builds the life you want or it doesn't. There is no neutral. Every decision is a direction. When you act with the end in mind, you become more strategic with your energy. You stop chasing distractions or temporary validation. You stop wasting time proving things that don't matter to people who don't care. You don't just ask what you can do, you ask what you should do. You begin to think like a builder instead of a wanderer. Builders know where they're going. They know what kind of structure they want to create, and they make sure every beam, every brick, every nail supports that vision. It also changes how you handle adversity. If you know where you're headed, a setback doesn't throw you off course. It becomes part of the process, something to learn from rather than something to fear. When the end is clear, the path becomes more meaningful, even when it's hard, even when it's slow. And when the path feels meaningful, motivation isn't so dependent on emotion. You don't wait to feel like it. You show up because you've already decided where you're going, and that destination is worth the discipline. Acting with the end in mind also brings integrity. It forces you to ask, am I living in a way that aligns with the kind of person I say I want to be? That question keeps you honest. It reminds you that reputation is built one decision at a time, and it invites you to rise above convenience and comfort in favor of something more lasting, character. So every choice you make, every word you speak, every habit you follow, every priority you protect, it's all creating your future. Don't leave that future up to chance. Begin with a clear vision of who you want to become, and let that vision shape what you do today. Because the life you want isn't built someday. It's built one aligned decision at a time.